I still see this going on Instagram now. They do an exercise and they pause. The weights go up and they pause longer. So they have now basically 6 reps, but all max out attempts. And in between is literally 1 minute on the machine just waiting. Yeah, I got 6 reps, but they're not continuous and the form got worse on every rep. I'm not as big as these guys, so I'll be the first one to say that, right? I'm not in a gram of training either, so maybe that doesn't help. But
you're just touched on a very valuable point there. Like Aaron really changed my paradigm to prep, like on its head. Like
right.
for the whole
which Aaron is this?
Aaron Casely, so he's known as Mofo Body Mechanic on Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
He completely changed my paradigm to how you adopt like training principles to prep. Like the whole of prep last year, I done no sets to failure. Like pretty much my training was either 3 rear or 2 rear. So 3 reps in reserve or 2 reps in reserve. But it was really like strict tempo-based training. So that was sort of how I knew when I was approaching like 3 reps in reserve or 2 reps in reserve by being strict with the tempo.
Right. And the tempo goes down and then you know that you're kind of, pushing towards the end of the set. Yeah.
You're hitting the end of the set. So it might have been like a set of 8 to 12 at 3 reps in reserve, but it didn't really matter if you got to 12 and that was when you had 3 reps in reserve. It was sort of like you had this gauge of when your tempo of like 2 seconds down, 1 second hold, 2 seconds up, 1 second hold, being really strict to that time, like counting it with each rep, when that cadence of being able to control the weight to that tempo either slowed down or became too hard, then you sort of knew, okay, I'm getting into the reps now where you have to really work hard to maintain the tempo. And so like we done no training. I think I had 1 week where he said to me, okay, let's go to 0 to 1 rear. And this was like at like 16 weeks out. And from then on in, it was all like 3 reps in reserve. So my sleep was perfect. My appetite was perfect because I was never chasing recovery. And like Aaron's whole philosophy to me was prep is about how well you can recover, not how well you can lose fat. If you can recover optimally each day from your training, from your sort of deficit, from your steps, from sort of small bit of cardio, your body will have no choice but to lose body fat because there's going to be no central nervous system stress. Your sleep is going to be unaffected. Like I remember last year, I'd go to bed at 10 o'clock and wake up at 5 a.m., like 7 hours sleep undisturbed, and sort of, never had any of the sort of androgen-induced insomnia or any sort of elevated heart rate where you're trying to fall asleep, but your body's that wired but tired that you don't fall asleep. I had known it. Like my prep, but when we got to the end, I could have maintained that sort of prep as a lifestyle because the recovery was taken care of. The nutrition was at an adequate level. You never had issues of like, even when I went to train, not once during prep last year did I like sit outside the gym in my car and go, F this, I'm not going in today. Or like worry, look at my logbook and go, oh, I have to match these numbers today. Oh God, help me. It was sort of like go.
I think Dorian Yates is now smashing his head against the keyboard because he knows it's like, dude, this is not the way to train. But he also secretly wishes that he did it something similar because, like, I'm sure your mood and your overall cognition was 10 times better during this prep than previous preps. And I'm noticing the same thing right now, right? I'm noticing the same thing right now. The previous cycle that I did, I try to keep like 1 or 2 reps in the reserve, maybe 1 or 2 sets to failure per workout. And now I'm getting back into the gym and I'm keeping 2 or 3 reps in reserves. And everything in life is better. You don't have this perpetual rain cloud over your head. And the weird thing is, like, we think we need to train this way to deal with our anger, especially when we're younger. I need to vent all of this rage that I have, but it's these sets to failure that actually keeps that alive. And if you ease back, you realize, like, wait a minute, I'm in a much better place mentally and emotionally and productivity wise, but I'm still just as big. If anything, you're a little bit fuller because you don't have this, crazy muscle damage that you potentiate with these extra reps just grinding through your teeth,
And that was pretty much like when Aaron took over, like that off season when we spoke last year. He even said to me, he's like, right, you're never going to try into mechanical failure. He said, at best, we'll do a cyclical approach where like you'll do like undulating periodization where you'll do 3 reps in reserve 1 week, then the next week 2. And then if you're feeling it, let's go to 1 rep in reserve and really tap into those high threshold units. But he said it's always going to be dependent on what your body's dictating on how far you're going to push that recovery. There's no point, like if your HRV is mashed, just going, oh, well, let's beat the logbook today because that's what we do. That I'm not against progressive overload. I've done it for so many years, but it led to so many issues, like nearly paralyzed myself. You've probably seen the video with the RDLs where literally I had two torn hamstrings that I had no idea about. And then I went down with 220 kilo RDL and came up and I just felt this ping and my back literally was like this.
Yeah, see. I've seen it. Yeah.
You know, you're chasing after a logbook thinking that you have to beat this number, but that's not actually what is really generating the tension for you to build effective muscle tissue. So I do sit in the camp of there is an element of progressive overload, but there's also that element that you can incorporate that into like reps and reserve based training where you are still increasing your load. So there's no doubt that you have to keep increasing your load, but it doesn't come at the sacrifice of tempo and it doesn't come at the sacrifice of recovery. Right. Whereas before, like I'd hack squat like 9 plates aside and literally just bounce out of it, like get really, really angry.
Reps at all costs. Right?
Exactly.
And I still see this going on Instagram now. They say people, I follow progressive overload. This is the only way to train. They do an exercise and they pause. And, you know, the weights go up and they pause longer. So they have now basically 6 reps, but all max out attempts, like a power lifter. And in between is literally 1 minute on the machine just waiting before they're next. I got 6 reps, but they're not continuous and the form got worse on every rep. You know, so nowadays, of course, I'm not as big as these guys, so I'll be the first one to say that, right? I'm not in a gram of train either, so maybe that doesn't help. But you know,
you're just touched on a very valuable point there. You're masking your recovery with more drugs, so you then dial back the drugs and increase recovery, and you need less drugs to grow more. So you know, there's the valuable lesson here of are you compensating for your really bad recovery with more drugs because the drugs are making up for that lack of recovery from your overzealous training.
Plus your organs at one point are literally going to fall out of your butt cheeks and then just run away from that like kind of lifestyle. Like, nope, out, we quit.
Yeah,
and they're off.
I mean,